Hi guys, it's Diana DeNoble from Starker's Corsetry and welcome to part 2 of our Underbust corset sew-along. Katrina from Aranya Black Corsets has recommended that I come up with a hashtag for this project so that everybody can follow along and post how it's going for them as well. This project I believe will be called #StaysAtHome. Thank you for that one, Simon. How are you guys doing today? I am keeping healthy so far. I took my own advice yesterday about getting out and being active, and my husband and I went out and went for a run, which is a little unusual for us. We're more weightlifting type people, but we don't want to go to the gym right now. So we thought, hey, let's just start doing a run like we used to. It was wonderful to get out and be in the sunshine and feel the warm air, the spring. I have micro tears in, pretty much my whole body. What's going on in the cup here today is a tea that I have been hoarding from Paris. I bought this Palais de Thé. It's a beautiful lavender oolong tea. It just, oh my gosh, it smells so wonderful. The last time I was there, I stuffed my suitcase full of this stuff and it's, oh my gosh, it is just, I wish you guys could smell this. It is so wonderful. So today it's about patterns. The first thing to know about patterns is what size to get. In a lot of cases, the manufacturer of your pattern will be able to tell you kind of the guideline of what to get. Some places recommend 4 or 5 inches below your natural waist size, and that's going to be the size to go with. Because we're going to be doing a mock-up and fitting correction, we'll be able to have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of the fit of the ribs and the fit of the hips, and maybe even nipping in the waist just a little bit more. We've got Aranya Black, who has several different styles, really great styles of underbust corsets, overbust corsets. I believe most of her patterns are free, if I'm not mistaken. Atelier Sliff, they've got some beautiful historical patterns as well. Red Threaded, I'm not sure if they have an underbust pattern or not, but I know that they've got lots of overbust patterns that are easy enough to cut into underbust patterns. Or you can use this tutorial to do an overbust. The bust shaping can be a little bit of another can of worms that maybe I'll get to in another few weeks, so this is still going on. And also So Curvy, I believe they have printable, downloadable patterns. I made some standardized patterns for my class at Toronto Corset Academy, just to have on hand so that we can start with a basic underbust corset pattern. Of course, if you download the pattern, it'll come in 2 pieces usually, top and bottom. So we'll need our patterns, we're going to need paper, scissors, and tape, and that's pretty much it for today. We're going to keep it really nice and simple for today, and tomorrow we're going to get to cutting out and preparing our mock-up from our pattern. So let's put together our patterns, and I'm pretty sure most of your patterns are going to have the same type of rules, but let me know down below or message me and let me know what patterns you're using. I believe Aranya Black said that she would be using a pattern that she created using Royal Black's tutorial right now. I believe she's got one on Patreon. I have an overbust pattern going on, a draft your own, on my Patreon page as well, but I think she's going a little faster and doing an underbust one, so that's perfect right now as well, so go check out hers. Most of your patterns are going to have a little 1-inch test square on them, and this is just to make sure that your printer is printing at exactly the right size. Now, once you've printed your pattern, go ahead and measure these little squares. Make sure it's 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. Whichever is best for yours. I'm reasonably sure most patterns available online will have this, and in most cases they'll have some sort of pattern matching lines so that you can sort of, and I think you can maybe see this through here, line them up like that, and then you'll know kind of where to tape them together. Do make sure all of your pattern pieces are printed out and ready to go, and that you're not missing anything. This is of course not the time to be using your favorite fabric scissors. Just some regular old kitchen scissors will do just nicely. So I'm just going to be cutting this to here. I'm going to be matching up not only the vertical lines but the horizontal ones too, and the pattern match lines sometimes can just be kind of like, where am I going? Yeah, they can be a little fussy trying to put them together like that. And you know what? Having a ruler is really helpful here too, just to make sure you do have your vertical lines nicely aligned, because what you don't want is having it taped together and having it pivoting out like that. That's not cool at all. Even a slight bit. If you've made corsets before, I'm sure you know that 1 little millimeter off here and there can lead to disaster down the road. So this part can be a little bit tedious, but I promise you all of this will be worth it. And now that that's nicely lined up, put a little piece of tape in the middle and another there. So once you've got that all taped together, I do like cutting it all out like so. Some of your patterns, I think some of the online ones won't have the seam allowance included. This one does. I do like to work with patterns with a seam allowance. Just be very, very clear on what your seam allowance is. Some of them use 1/2 inch, some of them go metric and use 12 millimeter. Some use 10 millimeter. I'm not sure why, but you know, just try to have the seam allowance in there, because sometimes marking it in chalk, it can end up getting a little bit, you know, wonky as you go. But really, it's entirely up to you. If you're accustomed to working with patterns that don't have a seam allowance and you're accustomed to marking it in, that's awesome. Just, you know, you do you. And do your best to cut just on the inside of your black line. I know it's just kind of a fraction of a millimeter, but that's just the precision that we want to work with here. Now you should have all of your pattern pieces nicely cut out, and try to trim off any weird little bits that you may have that didn't quite get cut properly. Trim off any tape, and sometimes there's little bits that hang out the back. Either tape them or trim them, or just do both so they don't get caught on things and cause you grief a little bit later on. A little thing that I like to do that might make your life a little bit easier as we go along is just measure each portion right across the waist and just mark it down what the measurement is from the center front to the seam allowance on each of them, so that when you do your mock-up, you can just make sure that everything is lining up measurement-wise. Your corset patterns will probably have a marking for the ribs, high hip, and low hip. And if you do happen to have those, do that as well along the ribs, the high hip, and the low hip, just so that you can adjust the pattern a little bit easier later on as we go. A lot of the times, people aren't naturally corset shaped by any stretch of the imagination. I'm certainly not. That's actually why I started making corsets, because I don't really have much of a natural waist. I'm fairly blocky. I have scoliosis, and that's giving me a blocky torso. A lot of people I have found also can have a smaller rib cage than their natural waist, and we're going to need to make adjustments for things like that. And if you do have any questions about adjusting your corset patterns for measurements like that, please message me, and I'm happy to give you any advice on changing the dimensions of the pattern. But for now, here's how we do just kind of a standard one, and I'm hoping that these tips will help you to figure out at least kind of the basics of corset making. So now you should have your pattern pieces all cut out with the measurements from one end to the other inside of the seam allowance written out on them. So this way you can measure all the way across. You'll know what the measurement for half of your corset is going to be. So you'll know that it'll be able to fit you or not. Or if there's some adjustments that you might need to take right off the bat, you may find that you've got a much wider rib or hip than the pattern really allows for. The mock-up stage can really help us to determine the fit and where we need to make the adjustments rather than just what the number on the flat paper is going to be. Use the manufacturer's guidelines on your pattern to determine what it is that you're going to need to buy for the materials, what yardage you're going to need for your corset fabric, what bones you're going to need. We really won't need to get to ordering that sort of thing until really we've finished our mock-up. Although I do recommend that you order things that need to be mailed to you as soon as possible. So we're going to try to get to that really soon. Tomorrow we're going to start cutting out our mock-up fabric and preparing our mock-up. And overall this should take about 14 days. So I'm hoping that your local corset supplier will be able to get the stuff to you relatively soon. And I'll have the information for you certainly for what to buy before Tuesday. As I mentioned, Farthingales ships out Tuesdays. If you're still not really sure what it is that you're going to need to buy in terms of your corset materials, I do have a list on my Patreon page where I'm posting each of these videos every day. If you're finding this through YouTube, I have a link to the Patreon post, the first post, where it has all the list of materials, and I'll post it again down below. So that's it today, guys. I hope that makes sense so far. And if you do have any questions, please comment below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. And let me know where it is that you're getting your printable corset patterns from. I want to hear what you like, what you're working on, and tell me what fabrics you're working on, and hashtag stays at home and show me what you're doing. So happy pattern cutting, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye. So let's get started with our underbust patterns. Oh God, got a bit of oolong there.